Alright, so let's put the time on just slowly at first. I'm not sure we're gonna stick in our subways, but we'll get to them at some point. And look, I'm sure these are all gonna be cheap and ugly. But remember, it's all part of the necessary growth pangs of our city. Yes, drive-in movies, big open parking lots, trashy joints. It's all part of the growing pangs of a young city. How many times have we seen this? Quite a lot. Oh, we need more power? Alright, well, what corner was it? Wasn't that corner? Lol. I just clicked the mini-map with the key I would use in StarCraft to click the mini-map. Sigh. Yes, it definitely is a thing. Alright, let's make sure this new power plant is fully funded. You're not a power plant. Where's a power plant? Let's make sure all our power plants are fully funded. Ooh, big league stadium. I like that. But we are having money issues now. In fact, let's cut the funding a little bit for that. Yeah. Well, I mean, as long as we're making any amount of money, it's all right, you know. But still, so we might have bit off a bit more we can chew. But hey, look, this area's starting to grow in a little bit better. So now that we've increased our demand for residential once again, let's move in over here. And ooh, look, we got some. Well, okay, it's pretty crappy looking over here right now. But at least we got something. And hey, you don't look bad. And look, high wealth. Alright. Yeah, I don't dare try to make a tunnel now on the funds that we currently have. But it's something that we can aspire for in the future, you see. Alright. So like I said, more residential. One good thing about how the NOM patches the game is that people will actually use the avenue and not try to cut through on streets like the one I am currently making. Because that was one of the derpiest and most silly aspects of the original, you know, way this game was programmed, is that people are like, gee, I could go a block over and take the expressway, but you know what, I'm gonna just take the side street. And, you know, there are people who will do that, but it's just not, you know, it's not something that people are going to, by and large, do in large numbers. Because that would be derpy. I did know one woman who was very paranoid and stayed off all the major roads and only took side streets to get everywhere. And I don't recall why anymore. She was a weird one, so, whatevs, you know. Okay. Once more. Commercial zones. Building plazas. Let's line it with plazas. Since we don't want to ghettoize our area here. And ghetto doesn't mean, one misconception people have, ghetto doesn't necessarily mean an area of poor people. It means an area where just everything is the same. You know, an area where a similar kind of person or a similar kind of thing is all grouped together. So, you know, the origin of the word ghetto, as we know it today, comes from, you know, the Jewish ghettos in Warsaw and other European cities during World War II, in which all the Jewish people were, you know, forcibly grouped together in small areas. And it also means involuntary, or, you know, voluntary groups of areas where people have just moved into. For example, the black ghettos and the Hispanic ghettos in many of our major cities, and since a lot of those places are poor, they've just sort of, the word ghetto has just sort of come to mean to us to mean, just a poor area. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that. I mean, a white neighborhood is all, a predominantly white neighborhood can also be a white ghetto, whether it be a rich or a poor white neighborhood. So, that's what ghetto means, basically. And who says I wasn't educational? This is educational YouTube television here. I should be tax exempt. I'm going to write to the IRS and ask for my taxes back. All of them. I think I'm owed that for increasing the level of intelligence on this planet. Just my little bit, Oh, man. Yeah. The town where I grew up in could be well described as a white ghetto, because almost everyone was white. Actually, that's not really true. There were quite a few Indians, quite a few Koreans, some Chinese, and Russians. Well, I guess Russians are white, but they're not the same kind of white. They're, Eastern European. But still, it's not quite a white ghetto if it's different groups. But yes, you kind of get what I'm saying here. Putting the trees on the hill because we like trees. We like them also very much. Let's let the time run forward. I want to finish that tunnel, but I know it's going to cost me money. Alright, we're back up to earning more than 3K a month, which makes me very, very happy. It's something I feel comfortable with. And our residential demand seems to be bouncing around. Looks like there's more demand for low wealth residential, but even if we get some low wealth residential here, even if that's predominantly what it is, that's alright. I'm not going to mind all that much, Are we really running out of water again? Alright, well I think it's time to make ourselves a patriotic second water pump over here. Alright. Yes, and not being able to grow because of water is like being supply blocked in StarCraft. Oh yes. I am thinking in those terms again. It's very hard not to after all this time. Then again, it's more of a hard thing in StarCraft because you can't build any units when you're supply blocked, and you can't build outside a pylon if you're Protoss. In SimCity, you can build outside the radius of your police stations and fire stations, and you can keep building when you have no water, but you're going to suffer the consequences of people not being so happy. So, similar thing, but not quite the same. Now, I'm not sure if I want one more exit. It could be nice, but it might just be better to drag it on through. And yeah, we're just going to come out, boop, right up here. And see how this nicely goes under the ground, all snug in its little cubby over here. This tree-lined cubby with some pear trees that we're going to leave as a reminder of this area's agricultural past. Very recent past from our perspective. This might mean this intersection's kind of crowded, but it's mainly going to be people getting off here because they can easily get on the bridge and continue on their way. Speaking of the bridge, I think there's actually a Billy Joel album known as The Bridge. But yeah, that's a good album. All Billy Joel's stuff is good. Everybody likes Billy Joel, unless you're a communist. But even speaking of that, he did perform a few concerts in the Soviet Union when it was still the Soviet Union. Now that is, you can't deny, that's pretty badass. And I think his song Leningrad was actually written in large part about, or at least was inspired by that experience. It's a very, very nice song, if you've never heard it. Oh man. Come on, come on. Aha! Aha! Nice. Okay, so people will at least have a way to get out here. That tunnel will have some sort of a functionality to it. Speaking of good Billy Joel songs, one thing I should mention is his very first album that many of you have probably not heard, called Cold Spring Harbor. He wrote it, I think, right when he moved to Los Angeles, or possibly even before that. He was only 21 at the time he wrote it, and he was suffering from rather severe depression when he wrote it, and it does come across quite strongly in his music. It's hard to recommend. It's hard to say like what is the one standout song from that album, but you know, his song "Tomorrow Is Today." If you just look that song up, is probably very surprising if you are only familiar with his later work, but it's just a very stark and a very sad song. And if anyone has gone through depression at any point, you will immediately relate to the song. It's very powerful, you could say. But yeah, it's a really great song. Kind of reminds me of the song House with No Door from Vandergraaf Generator. And that's a pretty obscure English prog band from the early 70s that I doubt that many of you have heard of. I mean, I didn't even hear of them until I read a book about my favorite band, Genesis, in which they are mentioned because they were label mates, both on the Charisma label, which is a defunct record label. They were absorbed into Atlantic in the 80s and folded shortly after. But yeah, it's just some interesting history there. I would say I've gone way off track, but I honestly forget the track that I was on. So, I'm just going to declare that I completely intended to get to where I am. You see, I don't make mistakes. Mistakes are for the weak. The Bone Canoe, he knows exactly what he's doing at all times. So, speaking of knowing what I'm doing, let's make sure this next area over here is nice and watered. We are still one with the zones and the water pipes over here, whatever that means. I'm not really sure where I was going with that thought, but that's alright. Okay. I'm thinking of exactly what I want to do up here. I am thinking possibly of a avenue that goes along the edge of the mountain above everything. Just for aesthetic reasons more than anything else. Oh man, but just something like this. And that will kind of be a boundary of sorts. Let's bring it up here if we can and declare that to be our point where we elevate to. And let's see, if I wanted to just ease that along a little bit. Actually, let's just juice up the time here. And come on, bitch tits. Lol. Speaking of bitch tits, not literal ones, of course, because this is a family-friendly programming, but the term bitch tits, apparently, according to my friend Greg, came from the movie Fight Club. I did not know that. I have never actually seen that movie. I'm sure there's many of you right now going, "Wah," but it's true. I've never seen it. Maybe at some point I will see it, but I just never got around to it, you know? To be honest, there's probably a ton of classic and recent movies. Ooh, Convention Center. Cool. But yeah, there's a ton of both classic and recent movies that I probably should see that I've never seen. I've never seen The Godfather. I had a copy once, but the problem was there were no subtitles in the parts where they were speaking Italian, and I got monumentally confused, and I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't watch this until I can actually, you know, understand what's going on here. So I put that aside for now, because I don't want to, you know, mess up the experience by having a, you know, a derpy copy of a classic movie and being like, wah, I don't get it. I mean, it's okay to not understand a movie because it's complex or, you know, crazy stuff's happening, but just not to get a movie because you literally can't understand what the characters are saying. That's a problem, you know? So, haven't seen The Godfather, haven't seen Fight Club. There's other movies I haven't seen. If you want to play a really derpy game, suggest a classic movie in the comments, and I will tell you if I have seen it. Yes, I will reply to your comment. It's kind of funny. I don't reply to comments directly often, and I think I should, because people tend to think... I think people get the impression that I'm kind of like aloof. I don't listen to what the fans are saying. But that's actually very far from the truth. I actually do read all comments.